It's sunnier, but it's colder today as well. And I guess with that in mind, holy, what's going on in the world today, huh? Apparently Russia's sending in like things such as tanks and so forth into places in Donetsk, according to this, and you can see there's videos of it. Russian tanks and military personnel are seen heading towards the center of Donetsk. I guess that's that conflict of Ukraine and so forth. Is there going to be a war over this? And according to this too, it says Ukraine braces for a potential conflict with Russia as West moves to impose new sanctions to Moscow. That's basically what it seems like a lot of places are doing in terms of implementing things like sanctions. And in terms of what happened, it was kind of interesting. Like here it says what? Putin announces Donetsk and Luhansk recognition. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that he is recognizing the independence of two breakaway regions of Ukraine. The self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic are in the east of the country and could allow him to move troops into Ukraine. The move has been condemned by NATO and Western countries. Actually, funny enough, when I first heard that, giving them independence, I thought that was a good thing because you usually hear things like freedom and so forth. People are even saying too, right after the Olympics and all that. The timing is a little too coincidental in that case. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much planned, I guess. And it says, in terms of sanctions, this one here says, Czech drone maker withdraws Russia amid sanctions concerns. In Warsaw, Poland, it says, amid increasing concern over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Czech drone manufacturer Promoko UAV has announced the company will halt its activities in the Russian market and sell its local subsidiary AO Premco BPLA. And they say here, the only reason for this decision is the sanctions regime against the Russian Federation and the impossibility of obtaining the export license needed to operate its drones in Russia, Promoko UAV said. And Canada's response here, the Prime Minister says, Russia's unacceptable actions threaten peace in Europe and around the world, and they will not be tolerated. I spoke with the President, von der Leyen, today, and we affirmed our strengthened commitment to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Now, with that, I wasn't surprised. A lot of people are calling him, I don't know, like a hypocrite and stuff like that, just based on what's happening here in Canada with the Emergencies Act. For example, like this guy says what? Tyrannical, non-democratic actions are a bad thing, eh? And then just pictures saying ironic. It is actually when you think about it overall. Now with that in mind too, I guess just recently, yesterday, they did some kind of voting in the House on whether or not it's good to pass that Emergency Act. And it says here, Emergency Act passes crucial House of Commons vote with NDP support. I think that's the key thing there with NDP support, because just from what I read over the past couple of days at Revelation about the World Economic Forum and stuff like that, I wasn't surprised, whereas I guess other people would. You can see like in the vote breakdowns, according to the site and all that, pretty much everyone in that NDP party voted with the Liberal. I'm not surprised again, just based on what I learned over the past few days. But it just makes you think whether or not people are thinking independently or they're just all the same party, I guess you could say, ultimately now. Which is the interesting to think about, because apparently here, a lot of, I guess, law societies and all that, they're saying this Emergency Act is not, I guess, legal or justified. And you see the letter here from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association about the day. It says, Dear Prime Minister, this evening the Parliament of Canada is expected to vote on a declaration of emergency issued by the federal government earlier this week. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association is calling on the government to revoke the declaration of public emergency. If you decide to continue a vote, we are calling on you to make this a free vote, permitting individual legislators to vote according to their own personal conscience. So they're suggesting like there, everyone should be able to say if they agree with it or not, versus just say going with the party, which by the looks of it anyways, again, they already voted for it and people voted based on what the party wanted to vote. I think the only party that was split was that Green Party. One yes and one no. To my knowledge, it still has to go through like another layer, like a Senate or something like that, so we'll see what happens. But what makes me think too is how, as you guys saw, a lot of doctors and scientists are condemning basically the way things are being handled. They say it's draconian, so they don't understand why they just don't get rid of things like the mandates and all that. Some people argue it's based on science, but when you have actual scientists and doctors saying otherwise, it makes you think, which made this video kind of interesting. It was from here, the Munich Security Conference 2022, and they had people like Bill Gates talking about Omicron, and his words were actually really interesting. Like this guy here, he quotes him saying, Bill Gates said, "Sadly, the virus itself, particularly the variant called Omicron, is a type of vaccine, as it creates both T-cell and B-cell immunity, and it's done a better job than we had with vaccines."
Where would you assess where we are today in beating COVID-19?
Well, sadly, the virus itself, particularly the variant called Omicron, is a type of vaccine. That is, it creates both B-cell and T-cell immunity, and it's done a better job of getting out to the world population than we have with vaccines. What that does is it means the chance of severe disease, which is mainly associated with being elderly and having obesity or diabetes, those risks are now dramatically reduced because of that infection exposure. And it's sad we didn't do a great job on therapeutics. Only here, 2 years in, do we have a good therapeutic. Vaccines, it took us 2 years to be in oversupply. Today, there are more vaccines than there is demand for vaccines. And that wasn't true. And next time we should try and make it, instead of 2 years, we should make it more like 6 months.
This might be bad to say, but with all the proof and stuff so far, if you're still like so adamant that you should keep things like lockdowns and restrictions and all that, where there's so much, I guess, proof where it doesn't seem like you should, just based on the situation. It's almost like you're the type of person who would want like something like a war to happen because it will give you more excuses to, I guess, lock things down, implement emergency measures. I mean, that's kind of crazy to think about too. And that's what apparently happened too. Like with the Emergency Act, he's justifying, the roads and stuff or whatever, they're open, but he still needs it. It's like, when does it end, huh? Alright, see you guys later.